Hi, welcome back to Next Tech by Tit. Feels great to be here again with everyone. Today, I'm talking about a camera that holds a very special place in my journey. The original Canon EOS R5 is probably the camera I know best in the world. I bought it more than 4 years ago, and from the moment I started using it, it became my main workhorse. Almost all the footage you've seen in my reviews over the years was shot on that camera. I've also used it for 8K video projects, weddings, wildlife photography, and so many other events. It has been reliable, versatile, and honestly, one of the best hybrid cameras I've ever worked with. That's why I'm especially excited to talk about its successor today, the Canon EOS R5 Mark II. This camera is finally here, and it is available now for $4,300 in the US. That's about $400, more than the original model, but when you factor in inflation, the price difference makes sense. In the UK, it costs around £4,500. Though that includes VAT. I want to make it clear right at the start that this is an independent review. Canon kindly loaned me the R5 Mark II for testing, but as always, they've had no say in what I say about it. Everything I share here is my own experience, my own judgment. Later on, I'll talk about whether it makes sense for you to upgrade if you already own the original R5. For now, I'll just say this, the R5 Mark II is more of an evolutionary upgrade rather than a revolutionary one. The first thing to note is that the new model still comes with a 45-megapixel full-frame sensor. It also continues to offer 8K video recording, but this time Canon has pushed things even further. You can now record 8,000 at up to 60 frames per second, in camera, in RAW, with 12-bit color depth, and using the full sensor width for advanced video shooters. That's a really big deal. The camera can also output ProRes RAW to external recorders, like a TOMOS. The R5 Mark II keeps in body image stabilization, a tough build quality, and a familiar button layout. The mechanical shutter still maxes out at 12 frames per second, and the flash sync speed remains about 1/250th of a second. The electronic viewfinder and rear screen are the same size and resolution as the original, which is fine, because they were already excellent. But under the hood, things get more interesting. The R5 Mark II now features a back-illuminated stacked sensor. That brings two big advantages: slightly better high ISO performance and, more importantly, much faster readout speeds. This means when you shoot with the electronic shutter, you can now get up to 30 frames per second with blackout-free viewing in the EVF. Rolling shutter in video is also reduced, and moving subjects and stills look more natural without distortion. This puts the R5 Mark II closer to some of today's faster cameras, like the Nikon Z6 II, though it doesn't quite match the blazing speeds of Nikon Z8, Z9, or Sony's A9 III with its global shutter. Still, 30 frames per second is very impressive, and it gives photographers a lot of flexibility. Canon even lets you slow down the burst rate through the menus if you don't need it that fast. Powering all of this is Canon's Digic Accelerator coprocessor, the same one used in the flagship EOS R1. This chip handles the camera's AI functions, from subject detection autofocus to exposure and white balance. The result is more accurate colors, smarter auto exposure, and improved tracking. Even in JPEGs, I noticed fine details looked a little sharper, and white balance was excellent straight out of the camera. One of the new features Canon is pushing is AI upskilling. The camera can try to boost the resolution of your images after they've been taken. In my experience, it worked okay sometimes, adding a touch of detail, but other times the results looked artificial. Honestly, editing software often does a better job, so this is more of a nice-to-have feature than a must-use tool. For video shooters, overheating is always a concern with cameras like this. Canon has published official recording times, and they're fairly generous. With the optional cooling fan grip, which costs over £500, you can record for up to 6 hours at 60 frames per second, 2 hours at 100 or 120 FPS, or about 45 minutes when shooting at 240 FPS in 108op. Without the fan, times will be shorter, but the improvements compared to the original R5 are welcome. Now let's talk autofocus. The original R5 was already good, but it was starting to fall behind Nikon and Sony in the last year or two. The R5 Mark II catches up nicely. It still uses Canon's excellent dual-pixel AF system, but now with updated algorithms powered by AI, tracking is stickier, detection is faster, and it handles human eyes especially well. Canon has also added sport-specific autofocus modes for football, basketball, and volleyball. These new modes are incredibly accurate for action shooting. There's even a system where the camera can prioritize certain people in a scene. You can register faces and assign rankings so the camera knows exactly who to focus on. That's pretty advanced, and a big win for photographers covering fast-moving events. Another handy feature is focus assist during bursts. The camera can help you pick out which frames were actually sharp when you've shot a long sequence. And there's also pre-continuous capture, where the camera saves up to 15 frames before you fully press the shutter button. For sports and wildlife, that can make a huge difference. The R5 Mark II is also built tough. It's big, with a magnesium alloy chassis, and well sealed against dust and moisture. The grip feels a little larger than before, which actually improves comfort for long shoots. The only real change in button layout is the power switch. Now move to the right side. It takes a day or two to get used to, but I actually prefer it hits quicker to switch on and off with your index finger. The viewfinder has been redesigned slightly. It's bigger now, with room for Canon's eye control autofocus system. This feature dates back to the 90s, when Canon tried it on film cameras, and now it's back with modern improvements. For me, it worked quite well, though glasses can be tricky. It won't be useful for everyone, but sports shooters might find it surprisingly handy. The EVF itself is excellent. With 120Hz refresh and very high resolution, shooting feels smooth and immersive. The buffer is also solid, around 230 RAW shots at 12 FPS with a SpecXpress card, or 93 RAWs at 30 FPS electronic shutter. That's plenty for most use cases. When it comes to connectivity, Canon has finally given us a full-size HDMI port. This is a huge improvement for video shooters compared to the fragile micro HDMI on the original R5. You also get USB-C, headphone and mic jacks, a flash port, and Wi-Fi 6E. An optional grip even adds a 2.5G Ethernet connection, which is great for pros working in real-time environments. The battery is new, with a bit more power, but life feels about the same in practice. The bigger issue is compatibility. Only Canon's newer batteries work. Older ones and third-party options don't. That's frustrating, especially since spare batteries cost over £100 each. The rear screen is as good as ever. Bright, sharp, fully articulating, and touch responsive. The menus have been tweaked for easier navigation, though they're still as complex as before. Custom menus help, but Canon's menu system always takes a while to master. And that's just the beginning. This camera is packed with small but meaningful upgrades across the board. It's clear